Okay, everyone, so we're going to get on a subject today that I feel is a very important thing. It's some of my expertise that I've been doing for so long, and I know so much about it. It's a very large subject, but again, what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep it pretty straightforward, and we're going to break the next section up into a few sections, and that is fitting. We're going to talk about fitting. It's very, very, very crucial that you understand a few things about it. So you have an entire bag, you have drivers, you have, let's call them setup clubs, fairway woods, hybrids. Then you have irons, which cover the bulk of your whole set. And then you have wedges and you have a putter. It's absolutely a huge mistake if you're going to try to fit an entire bag in a day. If you think about how long it would take, if you would, to fit a driver, it can take at a minimum probably about an hour. So if you have an hour with a driver, let's make it the same thing for the rest of the bag, right? So then an hour with your fairway woods and hybrids, an hour with your irons, an hour with your wedges, an hour with your putter, and you're talking 5-6 hours, plus or minus. If you wouldn't stand up on a driving range and hit balls for that long and expect to get the same results, why in the world would you do it? So now here's the other side. If you're a person who's very busy and doesn't have the time and really doesn't care either way, whether or not you get better or worse or anything along those lines, you just want to buy the new equipment, go nuts, honestly. That's your business. But from my perspective, the best thing to do across the board is for me as a club fitter to do the best for you. We need to get good results off of each one of these things. And if you do anything less than that, you're not going to get the best results. So when you're looking at a driver, which can be upwards of $500 to $700 now, a set of irons, which is easily over $1,000 now, fairway woods that are almost $250, $200 to $250 a piece, wedges that are $100 to $130, putters that are $200 plus. You get an idea what I'm talking about? You're talking about $2,200, $2,500 worth of equipment that you're just willing to buy because it's a brand. And you know what? If that's the case, hey man, great. It'll look super in a bag. But at the same time, if you have all this great stuff, I've laughed at 1,000 people that have the best looking bag in the world and still couldn't break 100 if they wanted to. So to be honest with you, hey, that's great. If that's you, you're a vanity player, fantastic, man. Good for you. At least you found a way to be able to enjoy a wonderful pastime. But like myself, I prefer to be good at it. So I take time to make sure that each one of the things that I've put into my bag is well thought out and it makes sense in the bag, so that I create a full composition of what happens from my driver down to my highest lofted golf club, which for me is 58 degrees. And I've validated each one of these changes and making sure that it stays the way that it's supposed to have a cohesive amount of distance separation between each one of these things, or else it just doesn't go in the bag. So that's the first part. Then we're going to start now. We're going to break down some of these things and talk about individuals with drivers, then irons and hybrids and all those other things. Okay, but we're going to talk about them individually. Okay, thanks for listening. We're going to keep going in just a second. Okay, everyone. So now let's talk about drivers for a moment. It's a very, very hot subject. I've heard statistics out there that the driver is, between that and the putter, are the two golf clubs in an average golfer's bag that they'll change most frequently. And most of the time it's probably due to a lot of marketing. So let's talk about that for a moment. The USGA has set standards out for the spring-like effect from coming off the face of a driver. Okay, so spring-like effect, what does that really mean? So as a representation, if my hands are flat, the flat face on the golf club, if it's flat, at that point would be caving in. Imagine the ball here, and at that point, as it's returning energy to the ball, the spring-like effect going the opposite direction. That has a standard of 0.830. Coefficient of restitution. Okay, if you want, I'm not going to go too much into the in-depth thing. I would encourage you to find out what coefficient of restitution is by looking it up on Google. You'll probably get a more scientific answer than I can give. So anyway, going forward, so that spring-like effect allows a driver to maintain ball speed and as fast as possible for whatever, however, and wherever you've contacted it on the face. So they have a standard for that. So at that point, now you have lots of things that go on that are the smaller things. The smaller aspect of drivers nowadays is talking about the use of the word technology. This is a big one for me. I've had a problem with it since the day one that companies came out and said, hey, buy the technology this, the technology that, I would absolutely encourage you to do one thing. Define technology first before you buy it. What does it mean to you? Are you sure you really need it? With the technology the way that it is, right? Is it just a design change from one driver to another to sell a new model? Is it really a technological change to begin with? Have drivers not stayed relatively plain in shape for a very long time? But then at the same time, when you're talking about things like these little movable weights, and somebody calls it a technological advance, is it really? Could you get the same thing off of an older golf club, use of lead tape? Has anybody ever seen that before? So is that a technological advance? I don't necessarily think so. But at that point, these companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars being able to tell you about technology. So in the end, none of that really matters unless it's relevant to what it is that you need as an individual. So be very wary. When you have a driver, your driver creates your sense of reality, your sense of right now with where you are in your golf game. It is your definition of where you are, right, as far as the driver goes. So with that being said, if you got sucked into it and you say to yourself, hey, this is the year, I gotta buy a driver, and you don't bring that driver with you, shame on you. Because to be honest with you, now you're gonna be fooled into buying something that you have no idea whether or not it's gonna work. Or does it work exactly the same as your other driver? And if it does, and you're happy because it's just buying a shiny new toy, great. You'll contribute to the economy of golf, and I absolutely thank you because it keeps us in business. However, for the person that is trying to get better, rather than having the same old scores and be frustrated with it, take extra time. There's lots of reasons why you might want to go with one design or another. In some cases, it's not just necessarily brand. A brand does not make a design. A brand is a brand. A design of a driver is just that. It's its own design. So when we're talking about drivers and you're going from one company to the other, there's splitting hairs difference between each one of them. So with that being said, if you have a steeper angle of attack to the ball and you hit more down on it sharply, one brand, or one design may be more conducive to getting you a better ball flight than another. If you have a faster swing speed, something that's more game improving may not work. I've seen it all different kinds of ways. And many, many times the things that are advertised as far as the marketing goes, the exact opposite happens. So how do you explain that? Other than being able to have a comparison golf club, here's my golf club, hit it a few times on a launch monitor, establish the standard of how my golf reality right here, and then at that point you bring in all of the other drivers, right? Different shafts if that's possible, so on and so forth. Then you have relying on the fact of the quality of the fit that you're going to get. The quality of the fitter can make a difference in your total performance. Are they just relying on stock shafts? Or are they trying to be able to get you the most of everything with shafts? Again, I'm going to talk more in depth about shafts and how they couple together later on, but we're talking about the basic side of fitting. So right now, listen, I cannot tell you enough. I cannot get this home. If you don't have a baseline of what to compare your driver versus other things, don't bother. If you don't have it, don't go for a fit. Because again, you're only going to get a quarter of the information, and for all you know, you may be hitting an old driver the same as you hit a new one. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'm not replacing anything in my bag until it's either completely and utterly worn out, or at that point I find something that absolutely eclipses the performance of the other golf club. Okay? So listen, that's some pretty unvarnished advice. I absolutely encourage anybody to give me some feedback, questions, anything along those lines. I know this is going to be a very deep subject. But please open up, an avenue for communication. Let's talk about it. Okay, because I'm sure a lot of people will have the same questions that you do. All right, thank you for listening, and we're going to keep right on going with irons and so on and so forth. They'll generally be a little bit shorter. Okay, so to add to the next section of the fitting side, let's talk about irons. Okay, over the years, a lot of irons have changed a lot, and a lot of what I said in the previous part of the video with drivers is relevant here as well. So it's important to make sure that you have your 6 or 7 iron from your old set, and at that point lay it down as a benchmark of comparison, your golf reality at this moment in time. And then all of the rest of all the golf clubs that you're testing that are interested in being purchased would be tested against that as far as a barometer of comparison. So now what we're looking for, you have to define. So it's important, again, when you're working with the fitter, it's very, very important. What is your goal with buying a new set of irons? Is it hitting the ball more in a predictable pattern so that you're a little bit less to the right or to the left? Now that's a multi-layered thing. We're just talking about the fitting now. We're not talking lessons or anything like that. But that can make a difference, right? If you've been playing the wrong type of golf club for a long time, being open enough to be able to have the right design for you that's going to get the most out of your ball flight, your how hard you hit it and such. That's a very important part. Okay, so design is very important at this point to make sure that you know that the right design is for you. If you shoot 100 and you go for a player's golf club, I don't know that that's necessarily the smartest thing to really look at. If you're looking to improve and irons is your toughest thing, but you're limiting what you can buy, well, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Okay, so anyway, going forward with this, honestly, it's the same type of thing where don't worry about the greatest marketing and the shiniest thing. Don't worry so much about look. That'll be another video, trust me. And just look at performance, sheer performance. Here's your golf reality. These are compared to it. You're either improving, either by accuracy, either by distance. Feel can be another one. If you're not hitting any better, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, that's an enormously important part of it. Again, as we go on, this is why I encourage you guys to continue to watch, because we're going to go deeper into all of these subjects and revisit some things in more finer detail. But again, just little bites at a time. Always question whether or not something's going to work, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to talk about will be fairways and hybrids.